What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name is Michael Roman, aka Allfires. We finally got the trailer for Daredevil Born Again. Now, we're going to break this down for Easter eggs, even though we know there were San Diego Comic-Con trailers out last year that we already did breakdowns for and some footage shown in a sizzle reel. There's still a ton packed in here we're going to go over. We'll discuss what's going on with certain characters, what's going on with the plot, point out any Easter eggs you might have missed, you know, the whole bit. We're breaking it all down, the first trailer for Daredevil Born Again. But first, if you could grab the subscribe button. We do daily Marvel content at the channel, so if that's for you, hit the sub button, leave a comment down below. That automatically enters you to win our ongoing PS5 giveaways. We'll get into the giveaway stuff at the end of the video. Now, the first thing to know going into this trailer is that this is a loose extension of what we already saw from the Netflix show, so you can assume there have been some major plot through lines where the characters' relationships are already established, and they've promised it's going to live up to the violence, and we see that right out of the gate, because the very first shot in this trailer is him fighting the villain Muse. Underneath, obviously, Wilson Fisk Kingpin, Muse is going to be the huge villain of this show. Now, if you're not familiar with Muse, he is not the type of villain you would have assumed Disney Plus would be including in one of their television shows. He's one of the more gruesome villains from Marvel Comics in their recent history. He uses the blood of his victims to paint murals, really the kind of villain you'd expect in a horror movie, not a Disney Plus Marvel show. Now, one of the direct storylines from the comics is when Wilson Fisk becomes mayor of New York and enforces an anti-vigilante policy. Daredevil will continue to fight for justice, and this will inspire Muse to start vandalizing certain New York City landmarks with symbols of the superheroes. The last one that he's finishing in the comics is the one of Punisher when he kills 12 police officers, and that only emboldens Wilson Fisk to strengthen his anti-vigilante policy. And because it's always the case that Marvel Studios and television only loosely adapt comic runs, obviously they're going to change a bunch of stuff, but because of how many details that line up with what we're seeing in this trailer, we assume this is the storyline they're drawing from. Speaking of which, the last we saw Wilson Fisk at the end of the Echo series, he was gearing up to run for mayor of New York, and now we know that this is the case as we see Matt Murdock thanking him for taking the time to meet him. And really what this scene is setting up, that Matt Murdock is no longer Daredevil. They'll reference that later in this trailer, and Wilson Fisk is no longer Kingpin, both quote unquote, because we know that's not the case, but it's them using these roles as metaphorical masks to hide what they really are underneath. That's the nature of their conversation. And of course, the one big piece of imagery they make sure to focus in on here is Wilson Fisk's wedding ring. Vanessa is back from the original series, and that's obviously the glue that sort of holds him together. Now, here's one attention to detail that I absolutely love. This is the original white painting from the Netflix series. Look at where the blood spatter is. Now, let's reference that scene in Daredevil Season 3 where Matt Murdock beats Wilson Fisk mercilessly in his own home. See the blood splatter on that white canvas? It's in the exact same spot. They've got it now. And it's that sort of attention to detail and continuity that really bodes well for this show. Now, another huge inclusion is the original characters from the Netflix show in Karen Page and Foggy Nelson. When they originally tried to reboot this Daredevil show in those first 4 or 5 episodes that they shot and eventually scrapped, they were not a part of the series, and both these actors and the fan base had let it be known that that was not okay with them, and Marvel made that right by including them in this series. And we're going to steer out of the spoilers because there's a lot being said about these two. We'll leave it for a future video. Now, here we are in Times Square, and there's actually a ton of Easter eggs in here. On the left, you obviously see Rogers the musical, reference back to Hawkeye Season 1 when they introduced that. They've actually done live versions of that at Comic-Cons. It's a whole thing inside the MCU, referencing past events with the Avengers as basically they would know the lore. Now, right next to the Steve Rogers ad, we actually have an ad for Pingo Dew, which is the same soda we just saw in Deadpool and Wolverine sitting on top of the Secret Wars comic, and of course the soda from the post-credit scene with Stan Lee in the original Hulk movie. There are some other Easter eggs in here. We know, though, that this is now confirming that Wilson Fisk has become mayor because of the ticker here on the right side. And above that, where it says Happy New Year's, you can clearly see that that message is coming from the Pim Van Dyne Company, an obvious reference to the Ant-Man and the Wasp corner of the MCU. Now, the next Easter egg I really like, because even though there is no Spider-Man in this trailer, and likely to be no Spider-Man or Daredevil crossover, at least anytime soon on Disney Plus because of the sharing rights with Sony, when you see this train, it obviously invokes the imagery of Tobey Maguire stopping it, just a reference really to New York as a whole, and trains like this, but, you know, definitely tickling the little inner fantasy that eventually these two are going to fight side by side in the MCU. We just don't know when. Now, the next part of the dialogue in this trailer is really at the crux of what's going on, at least with these characters at the beginning of the show. Hopefully there'll be some full arcs here and they'll change. But right now, Kingpin is asking Matt Murdock why he's not Daredevil anymore. And we see this picture of a falling Daredevil cowl as we hear Matt Murdock say a line was crossed. I'm guessing that the line that was crossed is we know Matt Murdock is going to be fighting Bullseye at the beginning, at least, of the series. That's from a lot of the set photos that leaked and some of the footage we've already seen in the sizzle reel from late last year. And I assume what's happening here is that he's going to end up killing Bullseye, and that killing is going to be going too far so that he's going to retire in full from the role of being a vigilante, because that's a line he didn't want to cross. Now, at the end of the trailer, we sort of get a roll call of sorts, but it's great to see that Jon Bernthal is back as Frank Castle Punisher, and although they withheld any real footage of the two of them going at it, we also know from set photos and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that we're definitely going to see Daredevil and Punisher fighting side by side. Now, the next character inclusion we see here is the White Tiger. Now, there have been a couple of people to be White Tiger in the Marvel Universe. Real recently, in 2011, it was Ava Ayala, but it appears that they're going with Hector Ayala for this character. He was the original White Tiger who was granted superhero powers by the Jade Tiger amulets, which basically give him powers very similar to Black Panther, which include enhanced strength, speed, coordination, agility, durability, and healing, as well as martial arts mastery. And in the comics, it sort of mimics Moon Knight in a way where he can actually manifest the costume, even though we see him putting it on here, and the fact that it's basically a separate persona altogether, sort of like what's going on with Moon Knight. Now, the last really awesome shot we get from this trailer is all of the different Daredevil cowls that we see towards the end, teasing the different comic-accurate costumes that we haven't yet seen from the character. Now, presumably 3 of these we've already seen in the MCU, the 2 red cowls and the yellow cowl featured in his outfit during the She-Hulk series, but there are 2 here that we haven't. The black cowl is undeniably his Shadowlands costume. That's the very comic accurate all black costume, red glowing eyes with the 2 red D's on the chest. And this other one, after looking at all of Daredevil's costumes, is most likely his armored silver and sort of black and reddish costume, but it's armored. That's the step up from that, and that's what I think this cowl is, something that you can take into battle, say against the Punisher, and actually have some protection against bullets. And of course, the end of the trailer ends with an action montage. They have really sandbagged this trailer, and I mean that in a good way. They didn't give away too much at all, and as revealed by the views on the YouTube trailer, I think in the first 11 minutes it was closing in on 100,000. I anticipate that this is going to be a very, very high-viewed trailer. I think the hype is extremely palpable. Marvel fans have been waiting for this for a while, especially considering they took the extra effort and care to make sure it was a real extension of the Netflix show that we all loved. But you guys let me know all your thoughts down below, especially if you saw some Easter eggs or details that I didn't include or missed in this breakdown. Put them in the comments. I'm all ears. Of course, you got to be a sub. Leave a comment to be entered into our PS5 giveaway. We've got like 3 in the next 60 days. The best way to keep up with the content at the channel is to hit the notification bell with all notifications turned on. And as always, if you liked today's video, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the like button. My name's Michael Roman. You could find me in a couple of places, Instagram and Twitter at I'mFires. You can also find me on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Apple, iTunes, wherever you listen to original music under the name Allfires. And while I'd sincerely appreciate you checking my music out, thanks for checking this channel out. Stick around. We'll be posting again real soon.